Two Davids Walk Into a Bar was filmed in front of a live studio audience.
This is David Anderson, and you're listening to Two Davids Walk Into a Bar. With me, as always, is Mr. David Lawler. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm all right. Once again, the nighttime is the right time. This is the perfect time for me to record. I love it because it's so quiet.
Yeah.
And all the kiddies have gone to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And that's good that they all went to sleep because of what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Oh, yes. And we're talking about... wait a minute. I want to promote you because you told me to.
Okay. I'm going to be an admiral. I want to be an admiral tonight.
You're the captain of my heart. Well, I think that you do the Vintage Cable Box series of articles that can be seen on Blissful, can be read on blissful.net or vhsrewind.com. Great articles.
That's right. And thank you, David, for that plug.
Thank you.
I'm going to be doing my Ted Night now from Mary Tyler Moore. Tonight we're going to be talking about adult movies, adult entertainment. Pornography, as it were, which started, and I just found this out, looking on the Wikipedia. 1896 was the first time a quote-unquote pornographic movie was made. Not really pornography per se. It would be really harmless to look at these days, but it was called La Couchère de la Marie, starring Louise Willy, who did... Louise Willy.
Willy!
Okay, it's a 7-minute movie, 1896, made by Eugene Perot and Albert Kirshner.
I only need about 30 seconds, and I'm good.
She's just doing a bathroom striptease. It's really nothing.
Hey, look, at the time, how much effort did any man have to put into to see any sort of breast of any kind? He had to always put a ton of effort in. So this was
pornography was basically, seeing a woman's neck or maybe part of her ankle.
That's, you know what? Gets the job done.
And then, of course, you have Fatima's Coochie Coochie Dance, which was a kinetoscope, which was shown on a thing called a Nickelodeon. You pop your nickel in, and then I guess you run the film. You're basically running the film through a light source.
I hope that Nickelodeon thing was one-handed, because you're going to be doing something with the other hand. I would think.
Yes, it was a one-handed crank. and this, I mean, adult films, such as they were, have been around forever. So it's kind of, like 5 minutes after. I think I was talking to my wife earlier today, and I was like, I got to do some research into the very earliest adult films. And she says it was probably 5 minutes after they discovered the camera.
Yeah, they started taking, the first camera was like, we can take a picture of something? Oh, hey, darling.
Now, who had the $1 million idea when they were like taking all these beautiful pictures or whatever, motion pictures, and then somebody said, wait a minute, what if we get a woman to take her clothes off? You think we could make money doing that?
Well, who invented the camera? Who invented film? Who invented the camera? Now
it would be Thomas Edison. Probably.
Thomas Edison. Yeah. Well, Thomas Edison invented everything according to Thomas Edison and his estate.
He invented sliced bread as well, and tasty cakes and Pepperidge Farm.
He invented the remix.
The remix. He invented the Disco 7-inch extended mix.
Yes.
Anyway, pornography, of course, continues on in this tradition, and then we get this thing called what is called the stag film, which you would show at the old bachelor parties, where all the guys would get together and just look at, I guess, a lot
smoke cigars. Maybe one of them would whip it out and then get kicked out of the party. Yeah.
Circle jerks,
what? Lots of stuff happened,
all that stuff. But really, I think it emerged as an art form, even though I don't want to really call it pornography. I don't consider Playboy to be pornographic. I know a lot of Christian fundamentalist types of the time, Baptists, and people like that, people who were prudes, probably looked at Playboy as though it were a form of pornography. But it did show naked women. The very first issue came out in 1953, famously with Marilyn Monroe on the cover. And history was made. It became an enormous thing. But it wasn't just pornography. It was a lifestyle. It became a lifestyle that was kind of hip, educated. It was an intellectual movement. Not only did Hef put pictures of pretty ladies in the magazine, he published short stories. He actually published the very first interview with Martin Luther King.
Yeah, he was always kind of. I mean, we could get into his personal life. I don't think I'd want to live the life he lived, but he
lived kind of a hedonistic lifestyle.
Yeah, it's a little much. It's just too much effort for me.
Yeah.
It's like, but he was at the forefront of civil rights. He was basically doing everything that pissed off the man. He had nudity. He had civil rights stuff.
But what was he? I mean, he was kind of like a well-dressed guy with a pipe.
Well-dressed, and then he'd wear a robe.
And he opened up a series of clubs with scantily clad women wearing bunny ears.
He opened up a series of women too, I think.
But it was for me. I look at that early age as kind of like the birth of the modern intellectual movement, where you have a bunch of guys,
but at the same time,
and girls sitting around talking politics and sociology.
Where they say like the road to hell is paved with good intentions. A lot of great ideas. And then, of course, other people get a hold of it and completely pervert it and turn it into something gross.
Well, and that leads us to Mr. Larry Flynt, who would go and it was actually a very interesting time because Playboy only showed naked women basically posing.
Can I just say, like, I think they kind of started showing nudity, and then they got so much flack for it. He kind of toned it down for a few years before they could actually start showing nudity again. I seem to remember, like the very early ones, you could see naked breasts. And then, like, a couple issues later, it'd just be like side boob. And
even that Marilyn Monroe issue, the first issue, was not something that he paid for.
Yeah,
I mean, he didn't pay Marilyn Monroe to appear. He found these pictures and he paid the photographer, and they ran them. And he would do that a lot. He would get he kind of ruined careers doing this too, like Vanessa Williams, who was crowned Miss Universe, I believe.
That was Penthouse.
Oh, Penthouse, yes. Well, it was the same.
Yeah, but the same sort of idea, yeah.
Same business model. Madonna, too, you would see, because all these, actresses and singers were penniless, and the only way they could make money before they were famous was to, pose nude for photographs.
And nothing wrong with that. This is America.
So, you move on to something like Penthouse, which is Vaseline-smeared lenses and exposed...
Emphasis on the Vaseline. That would not just be used on lenses.
and exposed body parts, exposed vagina, exposed labia. And then you moved on to Larry Flynt, who took their game and went completely indecent. And he had women in there touching themselves, digital stimulation.
Yeah, now I want to say
fake masturbation and simulated sex at the time.
Hustler, indecent, yes. Obscene, I would say no.
Well, this is interesting that you say that, because we talked about this earlier, that it is up to the individual's interpretation of what obscene really means.
Well, I mean, they would continue to sell it, so I guess he was not found. I mean, I think he was sued for being legally obscene in many places, but he never stuck because
mainly down south. I mean, in those religious areas
with people in the South, and as do many people.
And there were a lot of people that he was friends with that would not admit that they were friends of Larry Flynt, and then there were some that were. Hustler takes that, and I think the model for modern pornography, but the modern pornographic age owes a little more to Hustler than it does to Playboy, because Playboy was more of a classy vehicle.
Yeah,
Hustler was just flat out give them what they want, and they flew up, and Hustler wound up outselling Playboy for a time. And this leads into the adult movie industry, which we talked about a little bit in our history of home video. We talked about the pornographic movies and how they exploded. It became a multi-billion-dollar industry back at a time when mainstream movie studios were not making that kind of money. So
yeah, I mean, this kind of reminds me of kind of two things. One, Boogie Nights, when they started in these sort of like film, and they started in film, and it kind of goes to video, and it's like a whole story of like that.
Right.
And there's that great line of like, tonight we're going to make film history on video.
Can I see your cock? Thank you.
And there's this other show.
I like that we're having like this ultra intellectual discussion of pornography, but still being smutty.
Of course. Like. Always. There's a show on HBO called The Deuce.
The Deuce. Yes.
The Deuce, not to be confused with, what we usually think of a deuce. I believe it has to do with like Second Avenue or something. I think that's why they call it The Deuce. And it's about the early porn, like when it was like kind of like around the Deep Throat time in the 70s.
Yes.
And then it's basically it was run by the mob, and it was this whole thing, and like it was all sort of corrupt, and you had like the little sort of theaters, and they kept getting like these indecency things and obscenity things kept going on, but then certain people got paid off, so it went away.
Yeah, there was mafia. It was a mob-run business too.
Yeah. And it's just a very interesting. Now it's also very damn depressing. Most of it.
Why? Because it's all like drugs and
drugs. It's
HIV.
No, this was written right before that. Look, there are a lot of other STDs other than HIV and AIDS. I mean, there's a lot of other things you can catch people.
Gonorrhea, syphilis, herpes.
Yeah, and that's still out now. It's like super
Hoipies.
Hoipies. But it's very interesting to see now that the story that they do. They're kind of like skipping over years of like the first season was like early 70s, second season I think was like late 70s. So I think the third season is going to be going into the sort of the video and how that sort of revolution.
So they're trying to do with the subject matter what they tried to do with that show Vinyl. You remember that show where it talked about the early recording industry in New York?
That only got one season though, if I remember.
Yeah. Now I want to say that Playboy, obviously, I think it hit its prime in 1982, its peak of popularity in 1982, because that was when the channel launched, the Playboy channel.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, I may have said this before. It actually started out as another channel, I believe, called Escapade. I think I'm right about that. And then they either bought them or they merged or something, and then they sort of put the Playboy content on there. Like maybe they bought the Playboy name.
Now, Escapade I don't know much about. Could you fill us in a little bit on it?
Okay, here's what I remember, because this goes back to when I was talking about like when we first got cable. Like you could have like HBO, Showtime. There was like a Sonics channel. We had a basketball team then.
Oh yeah, the Seattle.
And then there was this thing called Escapade, and it was a lot of adult movies. Probably because I like.
Were they censored or were they?
I'm gonna guess yes. I'm gonna guess much like the Playboy channel stuff. They were probably some censored X-rated movies, and then a lot of like on the edge, like hard R movies. I don't think much original actual content, because you would get that with Playboy channel. And then I'd say, like, you're right, around 82, I think either they got bought by Playboy or they bought Playboy or something, but they changed.
Or maybe Playboy bought them out, because
maybe Playboy bought them out. Yeah.
It just says that there was something called Playboy TV. Well, that was in 1989 when they became Playboy.
Yeah, Playboy TV was later. It was the Playboy channel for a good chunk of years for my formative years. You know, when I would watch, you know, I had a TV that you could either watch it. This was before they started like blocking a channel, but you could just have like a wavy channel. This is very much like American Pie. You know, I see a boob.
The scrambly thing.
And you know, you'd still get the sound, so you could kind of make out what was going on, and then you see like half a breast, and it would be like a wobbly picture. And then I had this
you could still get the sound pretty good too.
Yeah.
You could sort of use your imagination. It's like dirty radio.
It's all you need is half a breast, and you're good when you're 13. I had this one TV that you could kind of, I'm not going to say like, it was like some sort of weird like fine tuning thing, and it would kind of create like, it would kind of like move the picture around so you could kind of get much less of a wobbly line. It was still very wobbly, and it almost looked like this weird sort of grainy, cartoony, weird effect.
Yeah.
But it was much better. It was much better than what I was getting with just the line going down it, and I could make that work. And I had that for a few years. And then of course they started
pop the tape in.
Yeah, pop the tape in. Well, if you tried to record it, it wasn't enough of a stable picture, so it would like the time could.
Well, it says here at the time of its launch, the programming, it only lasted for 10 hours a day, from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m.
I remember that.
And it was usually only R-rated films. They didn't really have adult programming yet, not until, I would say, probably until 1984 is when they started producing their Playboy magazine, which would have their centerfolds and even their interview stuff, and people like John Waters and Cheech and Chong were on it. I remember that. What Playboy produced, they didn't really produce like adult films per se. They produced, you know, kind of like the stuff you might even find on HBO, like real sex, but with more attractive people.
Yeah, I remember. I don't know if you remember this, but there was actually like, this is an early Arnold Schwarzenegger thing that he did. He went to Rio. They sent, maybe this was, may not even been produced by them. They just like bought it from somebody else. But it's like he goes down to Rio and he sees the ladies.
That was like, Hugh Hefner's street credibility. He had friends in high places.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whereas Larry Flint might have had a couple of good friends who might have been powerful and kept
well, I mean, come on. I mean,
back,
he has the Playboy Mansion. He has people, celebrities come in. He's got
celebrities coming and going and
going,
sometimes at the same time.
Yes, and a perfect blackmail material. You know,
and what's more, he was hip with the kids because he introduced a lot of music especially like back like in the late 60s, early 70s. He would have these bands. He would have bands like the Doors performing at his mansion. He would have, what else, Deep Purple performing at his mansion, and he would shoot his TV show in that mansion.
Yeah,
and he did have a TV show that ran on regular television before
that was
he
just
started
him
that.
hanging out. It was like
He was just like chilling. He was chilling with pot smoking hippie celebrities, and they talked about
Jr.
peace and
would be
love.
there.
Sammy Davis Jr., Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra would show up.
I got a
Roman
story.
Polanski.
I'm remembering a story that I read just recently about how, and this is like one of his sort of his I guess like butlers or like one of his minions or something. What happened was, he recorded a lot of his stuff that went on at the mansion, lots of sexual stuff that went on. He made recordings, and they had the films and recordings and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And what he did was he got so spooked by all these weird, like the Tommy Lee tape coming out.
Yeah.
He had his guy go and basically take all of his stuff and like fill it up in a concrete crate and go and take it out in the ocean and dump it, because he didn't want any. He didn't want,
there with all the Atari ET games.
Yeah, I mean, just think if he pissed off like if he had like blackmailable material, whether he used it on him or not, they might think that.
I gotta think in this day and age, he was probably squeaky clean compared to a lot of other people. Yeah. Because if he could continue to live his lifestyle and obviously provide for his staff and provide for his many, many wives and his many, many playmates, then you wouldn't hear a horrible story. I never really heard a horrible story about Hugh.
No, I mean,
never
he
did.
Also but he's
just that he became a dirty old man who liked to hang around with beautiful
when you hear
women.
Stories about him like near the end of, like, I'd say maybe the last 20 years or something, because he did get married in 1989 actually.
But Playboy didn't really, like I said, they didn't really like produce adult entertainment movies anyway. They produced shows. And the Playboy channel was very, very popular. And I do have a story about that. I did order it once.
Yes.
Just basically kind of I was just really curious. They would show, at the time that I ordered it, probably 1991, 1992, and I was just doing it because I had an addressable cable box, so I could just hit a button back then and order it, and then it would show up on the thing, and then my mom eventually caught on to it maybe 2 weeks later. But it wasn't really anything to speak of, because a lot of the stuff that they would show, I mean, they would show their programming, and it really didn't seem like it was 24 hours, and it was much more expensive too. It was like $20, I think. It might have been $20 compared to the $12.99 that an HBO would cost. And then after hours, after they were done with their original programming, they would put on adult movies. But the adult movies were censored. And I thought I'd bring up now the reason that we had this, in addition, we also had the public access channel that would show the Robin Bird show. And again, it was usually like 4 or 5 episodes, and they just ran them over and over again. And it wasn't particularly sexy because, of course, it was Robin Bird. But number 2, there was an ordinance then, and there's still an ordinance now that says that certain things cannot be shown. And I thought I'd just break it down for you as entertaining as I can, but we're talking United States Criminal Code, Section 18, USC, from 1460 to 1470, and then 2252B and 2252C, which says possession with the intent to sell and sale of obscene matter on federal property, mailing obscene or crime-inciting matter, importation or transportation of obscene matter, indecent mailing using the Postal Service, of course, broadcasting obscene language, which I find interesting because obscenity is and always will be a subjective phenomenon.
Yeah, it is, and it's like they said, community standards. But now we're in a world where we're all part of the same community now, because we all communicate with each other. We're all kind of like part of the same country and world and everything. Although some places are nicer than others.
Yes.
And I actually had a question. Something that popped into my head. Were you around for the Ugly George years at all?
What years would those be?
I don't know, early 80s maybe. Yeah, you would have been. You're around my age, so it probably would have just been before you could have had cable and gotten in New York.
What is this? What is the Ugly?
You don't remember Ugly George? He was this guy, and you can probably look him up. He would basically go around in New York. He's almost like the Naked Cowboy, except more gross. And he would go around and he would pick up women for his public access show and get them naked. And
okay.
And he would get some nice looking women in there, because hey, It's all law of averages. You ask enough women, hey, you want to get naked? Some of them will.
This was a time when women were beginning to explore the fact that they had their own sexual power.
Yeah,
so
this
you
was
would obviously find a lot of candidates.
This was this weird period where first women were let's say they were kind of oppressed. So then we have, I guess, what's called the sexual revolution, and then they just go ape shit and get very slutty for a while.
Yeah.
And then they were like, wait a minute, we need to calm this shit down. We need to create value for this product. So they
act like we're the bad guys.
They calmed it down a little bit, but there was like this weird period where women were extra open and slutty.
It is strange. We have entered into a kind of a new puritanical era that a lot of this stuff is museum pieces now.
Yeah.
In March 2016, the magazine no longer featured for full frontal nudity, but then they admitted, I guess, in February of 2017 that the dropping of nudity had been a mistake, and furthermore, it reestablished some of its franchises, the Playboy Philosophy and Party Jokes, of course, but dropping the subtitle "Entertainment for Men." So now Playboy is considered a magazine for both men and women.
Well, if women enjoy it, I've talked to many women. They enjoy naked female form. Sure.
Well, they enjoy. Yeah, many of my customers who rented porno videos at the video stores I worked at were women, not men. Usually, men would be like, "Where's our adult section?" Men tend to be, but women were like, I want this. I want to see some Swedish
in your videos,
can sucking.
Yeah. Did you have the beads in the special room that you had to go through?
Actually, no. I believe what we had, we just had a corner. We just had a corner off to the side, away from the kids' movies, away from the major releases. We just had like this kind of alcove that had
didn't have like little Western saloon doors that you.
So if the kids go over there and say, "Mommy, what's that?" "Oh my God!" Turn over here. The Playboy channel was wanted to get back to the obscenity law here, which is very interesting. Let me see. The second description, one of these things that I sent you, they were talking about the definition of obscene. Mm-hmm. Now, there are 3 definitions for what might be considered obscene. One is whether the average person, applying contemporary adult community standards, finds that the matter taken as a whole appeals to prurient interests, erotic, lascivious, abnormal, unhealthy. I sound like George Carlin now. Degrading, shameful, morbid interest in nudity, sex, or excretion, which is kind of
covet. Heavy there on a covet, father.
Number 2, whether the average person applying contemporary adult community standards finds that the matter depicts or describes sexual contact in a patently offensive way, i.e., ultimate sexual acts, normal or perverted, actual or simulated masturbation, excretory functions, lewd exhibition of genitals, or sadomasochistic sexual abuse. And 3, whether a reasonable person, someone like you and me, we're reasonable, finds that the matter taken as a whole lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. Now that's kind of frightening to me because it's based on a person's perception of what is art, what is valuable. Mm-hmm. And that leaves too much. And obviously, as we can tell, just based on me reading these, there's more than a few things out there that might fall into these categories. So it's interesting that nothing is coming down on these. No law.
Well, because what happens is someone, a state or federal agency will charge someone with obscenity. They'll go to court, and then basically, I was thinking about this now of like, you may not like it, but it has value to the person that enjoys it. And as long as the content and the person in the content, it does not infringe on their personal rights, like they did it as a willing adult, they cut off as 18. Yeah. As long as they're a willing participant in the act and this person enjoys it for whatever reason, then I guess it has value. Now, you don't have to like it. There's a ton of shit I don't like it on various levels.
There's something, I think in this world there's something for everyone. And some of those things break laws too, and some of them are trying to be normalized. Mm-hmm. And I don't agree with that, but I do agree with the idea of a healthy sexual appetite. I do agree with a healthy interest in sex. Mm-hmm. It should never be something that should be behind closed doors. It should always be out there because it's part of what makes our country,
Well,
the greatest country in the world.
The more you suppress it, the weirder it gets, because the more you push it down, the more it's just going to come out.
Like that Star Trek episode. Remember the Star Trek episode we talked about where this whole planet is full of like robots who just walk around saying blessed be the body, and then the Red Hour comes up and they beat the holy hell out of each other.
Yeah.
And they rape each other and they do all kinds of terrible things to each other. And Kirk and Spock are like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah, it's kind of like the Purge.
So yeah, and then there's also the Purge, another very interesting idea there. And this is something we talked about last time, I believe, is that one of the great things about cable television is that you're paying for this and you're getting the whole show, and you should be permitted to get the whole show. Now, I think when pay-per-view comes along and when the Playboy Channel and adult pay-per-view, and you're paying a lot of money for this stuff. Sometimes you'll pay like $10 for one movie just to see one time, right? Unless you've got a VCR and you record it, which is what I used to do. Did you ever do that pay-per-view? I don't know if we talked about that, but you know, when a movie came out on video, it would come out on pay-per-view like within the week, and then you put it on your pay-per-view, you pop in a videotape, and you can record it right off the cable.
I never really did the pay-per-view thing as far as movies until like way later, when everything went digital and you had digital cable boxes, and basically it was when I was living with my family, and we would get basically a pay-per-view coupon.
Yeah. Okay.
And then that's when we would do it. We'd rent a movie in HD, and then I would like record it on, because I had a DVD recorder, and it kind of like had double value of like I can watch it in HD, and then I can record it onto a DVD and then give the DVD to my parents, and then they can watch it at their leisure, so they don't have to watch it within that 2-day window that I have to watch.
You just broke 3 federal laws doing that.
No, because I think that's within the law. If you do that it's for home use. It's for home use, and it's like they would watch it, and then I
wait. If you asked your mom for $5, that would be a thing.
Well, she paid for it.
Give me $5.
Give me $5. But
well, I do. Well, I remember one time when Silence of the Lambs came out on home video.
Yes.
We tried to go to the video store. We had like 3 memberships at different video stores on the Upper East Side. None of them had it in, but it happened to be on pay-per-view. So we're like, let's get it on pay-per-view. So we got it on pay-per-view, pop a tape in, break a law, and record it.
Again, that's not breaking the law. It's for home use.
No, what they want you to do is buy it over and over again. They don't want you recording it, because you record it, you can watch it at your leisure and not pay a dime. Although it never gave you the complete movie though. The pay-per-view only kicked in like maybe 5, 10, 15 seconds into the movie, so you would invariably miss the opening titles.
Yeah, but so are you saying that you were kind of like, now I can't remember if you said this, but like you're basically, when you would do the pay-per-view as far as adult stuff, you would get an edited film, because
a censored version of the film.
They want to appeal to they don't want an obscenity charge. They want to like appeal to the community standards.
Meanwhile, I can walk around the corner to the bodega on the corner and pick up like 5 porno films right there, all uncut.
Well, you can walk over to the bodega and go behind a dumpster and live a porno movie, probably.
Yeah, you might be able to, but it was very frustrating for a young man such as myself, because
well, everything's frustrating as a young man,
because they would shoot a safe version of the porno film
because they don't want it's basically they don't want any trouble. They don't want an obscenity charge. They don't want like a class action lawsuit.
Sometimes the editor would not be doing his work. He would fall asleep at the wheel, and sometimes you get a little bit of something.
Yeah,
you see at the bottom of your image or something.
This can kind of dovetail into I had a satellite dish. This was in the 90s.
Okay. And
if you had a satellite dish, you could subscribe to full XXX. Now we're talking like mid 90s XXX, which is almost quaint by today's standards. But full.
Oh, but mid 90s was awesome, because that was the era of big tits and big hair
and big bush and like real women, and it was awesome. Although
it was real women, it wasn't these like shaved, barely 19-year-olds.
And this was pre-Viagra. I mean, we get into like, I don't want to get gross, but like pre-Viagra. So the guys would perform like a normal human being would perform.
Right.
Just to say, it didn't look like it is today, when it's like in full.
They're
fully there.
Before you continue with the story, I was watching an interview with Kevin Pollak was doing an interview with the director Barry Sonnenfeld. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Barry Sonnenfeld, director of Addams Family and all that, Men in Black, to make money in New York. He would he was a cinematographer on porno movies, and he had a story. He said basically what you did was you shot all your story stuff first, because this was back in the days when you actually had to shoot and have a story,
Mm-hmm.
rather than how it is now, which is like, hey, come on over, let's have sex.
Well, again, this was for the women, you know.
These porno movies back then were being made. They were like movies, but they had real sexual intercourse in them when they had sex. Now, what they would do is shoot all their story stuff, and then they'd have to go out 3 or 4 hours, wait for the guy to achieve a state of ecstasy, and then come back and shoot what is romantically referred to as the cum shot. So they would have to get all that. They would have to wait until this guy was ready to do it before they could do it.
And
so
now it's a little. They have a little more flexibility because they can just like actually what they do is now.
Actually, I think they have the opposite of flexibility, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Wink,
they're ready
wink,
to go,
nudge,
and man,
nudge.
they either take a pill or sometimes they'll just inject it directly into the thing. And
It's
that's a whole
actually,
other-
you know, it has gotten. If you look at the new stuff being made now, this is really getting smutty. But if you look at the new stuff being made now, these guys are the only word I can use is breathtaking.
Yeah.
Just absolutely. I will stop there. But
well,
go ahead.
you know what?
Continue.
It's well, I mean, it's basically. I mean, they grew up in a world of porn. They're almost like bred to do porn. It was like breeders or something.
It's always
They
the
don't-
same 5 or 6 guys too. It's like hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of women, but the same 5 or 6 guys.
because they're the only ones that get, I mean, you know. But I think that so I had a subscription to these channels, and it was like the Ecstasy channel, and like Ecstasy 2, and then there was another one. And basically, you could get it off a satellite. If you depending on what they're talking about community standards, there were like a few southern states that you could not subscribe to it, like
Okay.
only
Wait,
available
wait.
in this state. This state, like
Before you continue, can I ask how much did those channels cost?
Okay.
Were they less or more?
expensive, but not terrible. If you got like the way you would work with satellite is you'd buy a year's worth of channels. You'd buy it by the year. So your subscription for like everything, my subscription for everything, and I had everything that you could get anyway. It would be like around $1,000, but it would be for a year, so it would only go out like $85 a month or something.
Okay, yeah.
Which ain't bad.
But I don't know. 85 back in the 90s sounds like a lot.
But again, that wasn't just for the porn.
So my average bill was roughly, I would say, between $30 and $40.
The chunk, the porn chunk was I think like $270 for the year, which that ain't bad to get basically unlimited XXX porn.
But it was all censored though, right?
No. That's what I'm saying. It was not.
Oh, it wasn't. Oh,
It was not censored.
You saw all of it? My God.
I saw all of it on 3 channels on satellite of varying quality, though. It seemed like
but there is a downside to that.
Yeah.
You have to wait for it to happen. You can't just click to what they call the different.
You get a schedule and just talk about like recording stuff. Oh, I would record these things. Trust me. And so you could kind of look in the schedule. Okay, this is a big fat asses 12 is going to be on. All right.
No, I mean I'm talking about the actual acts in the thing. You know how on your media player on your computer you can just fast forward to the best parts. But you would have to actually wait for all that stuff.
You have to wait for it to come on and record it, or just kind of just put it on and see what's going to happen.
Go do the dishes, vacuum the carpet. When they come back to something interesting, get over there.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
But yeah, so that you could. This was the night, and man, they basically like they'd even have commercials for it. Maybe you can find it on YouTube, where they had like, oh, the cat's getting involved. Yeah. They would have like not available in Mississippi, Oklahoma, like all these like southern states that you don't want to deal with.
Oklahoma,
where you can't get any porn. Yeah. So it's like all these like not available in these states. But you live here in like in the civilized world, so New York over there, Washington State over here.
Yeah, we didn't have anything in Tennessee. I remember that the lineup of the channel package that you would get in Tennessee. We didn't have any kind of adult entertainment down there.
No, because nobody.
And the guy who owned the house that we lived in that we were renting from was a minister, for crying out loud. He was a pulpit pounding minister who talked about going to hell every 5 seconds.
Well,
we saw him on the public access station. I'm like, who's this guy? He's really screaming to high heavens and pounding a pulpit. My mother takes one look and says, "Oh my God, that's our landlord," which was the funniest thing.
That just reminds me of that thing they used to do on the Daily Show when they had the God Talk, and they had this one guy that was very pissed off. Like I can't remember his name. He talked about and I went to the church and they were watching Terminator 2.
I remember God Talk, and I remember this one guy who would always have these tears or something, and he would always just talk about the love of Jesus, and he always wanted to cry, oh my Lord. He's just, but yeah, God Talk, that was really funny.
But yeah, so yeah, basically you could subscribe if you wanted, and I did want, so I did, and it wasn't.
God bless Washington State. Apparently, they didn't give a rat's ass, did they?
Well, I'd say like 80% of the country.
Did they have any Canadian porn? Did you catch any Canadian porn where like, I'm just gonna put this in you, eh? And you're gonna like it, eh?
Let's see.
This is really good, eh?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, eh?
Yeah, no Canadian porn, but it did seem like these companies that they were running, it seemed like it literally looked like sometimes they would put a VHS tape in. Like it was like maybe they get like 3/4 inch tapes, maybe, but like the quality was varying. But hey, they were a solid company. They ran it. But they probably had like a staff of lawyers because they probably kept getting sued in different municipalities.
Yeah,
I'm gonna guess.
Well, I mean, if this isn't an argument for states' rights, I don't know what is, because obviously the federal statutes are extremely severe. They view everything.
Well, they're severe and they're too darn vague. They're too vague.
They're vague about your average person and your reasonable person.
There are no average people or reasonable people anymore.
Yeah, everybody's unreasonable as it is, but that's a federal law. But state law supersedes federal law on its own terms, because as we know, this isn't so much a nation, a country, as it is a collection of 50 states, nation states, and they all have their own varying degrees of laws, such as the age of consent, the age for driving.
Surprisingly enough,
we talk about abortion rights.
In the southern states, the age of consent is pretty darn scarily low.
Yeah, Arkansas actually scares the hell out of me because it was like, for a while there, it was like fucking like 14 or something. Yeah. Now, I said before that I did order a couple of movies, but it was disappointing because I felt it was a ripoff to be spending that kind of money. Pay-per-view, there is, I don't know if you've done any homework or any additional or recent research on this, but there, now that we have the new cable service, right? Mm-hmm. We have this new HD DVR technology with the programmable guides, but we get hundreds of pay-per-view channels available to pop up. And within that subset, there is a subset of adult movies, many adult movie channels. Now, I'm wondering if those adult movie channels also are censored, because can you imagine it's all HD quality now?
You know what? All I can think is I remember kind of near the end of when I had a satellite dish, Playboy, I had the Playboy channel as well. What I remember was near the end of when I had it, which was about 2000, they were creeping up the explicitness of what they could show. Like it would basically be the full act with insertion and everything. Mm-hmm. Everything but the money shot, basically.
Oh, I have to say though, it's not called pay-per-view anymore. It's called on demand.
Yeah, it's on demand now because why have a channel when you have like you can just go right on and it goes through a server and everything? Why have a channel of like scattered movies that you can just tune into when they come on?
Right, and it's all these pornographic services, all these adult entertainment services, I should say, like Vivid, the studio, Reality Kings, things like that, where they have their websites and everything, but they also have it. They can pump it directly into your living room.
You know what? I'm thinking on cable. It's probably it's much like with the dish where it's very municipality dependent. And I bet that they probably have a censored version for for the uptight people. Mm-hmm. And then they probably have in a lot of states, I'm going to guess it's full because it was so close to like almost there like 15 years ago. I'm going to guess, considering the complete total moral decline of America these days, I'm going to guess that you can, when you order a pay-per-view porn movie, you get a full pay-per-view porn movie. Now, you're probably not going to get, because like
I don't understand why anyone would order something that would just be censored.
Because people are desperate. Why would people go into Blockbuster and get a Body Chemistry,
Body Chemistry R-rated version.
Yeah, they're like, I got to get some breasts. I'm dying over here. Please help me. People are stupid and desperate, and sometimes they just need, I got to have some boobs. I got to have something. Please, I'm dying.
So now we move on to, because we launched into on demand. Obviously, the adult film industry has taken off on the internet, and it's become so huge, and I'm not even joking when I say that.
No.
It's like and what's more, you can find stuff right away and you don't even have to pay for it.
It's basically, it's ubiquitous. It's just there. As far as like the cable aspect of this goes, in the 80s you had Playboy Channel, and then you had like we were talking about Spice. You could get Spice, which was basically the kind of stuff they would show on Playboy Channel, except it was mostly just movies, and they were slightly edited down versions of porn movies.
Right.
And that was basically all you could get. And, and we liked it. And in a way, I think it was better because it basically forced you. If it's too easy to get on the computer, that's what people will do. And they'll become lazier and lazier, and they'll just be on their computer and be with themselves instead of actually putting the effort in, having a relationship, having actual healthy sex with people.
Well, I think that's also why in the past several years, the porno movie industry has lost money like crazy. I mean, they're hemorrhaging money because all of this stuff is now available.
Yeah, someone will create a website or whatever and be their own performer and sell their product that's about them and whatever it is that they do. Yeah. And then it'll end up on like some tube site. Like a couple days later, someone will record it. And then it'll be up there for like a few days, and then you have like the Digital Millennium Copyright Act where you can then. But basically, they almost need like a staff of people to scour the internet for anything that might go up on a website at any time, and just to keep it from. And hey, people want to do what they want to do and sell themselves. That's great. This is America. But then when you start making everything free, it's too easy. It's too darn easy.
That could be the death of the industry right there. This industry, which posted numbers in excess of like $20 billion a year at its peak, making way more money in this country alone.
Well, yeah,
not even worldwide, but in this country.
In the old days, it wasn't necessarily about cable. It was more about like the tapes, and you'd have to go to the special store in the odd neighborhood.
Yes,
with a weird door.
I was hoping you would bring that up. The bookstores, these adult bookstores.
And you'd have to get the oversized box, and you'd spend way too damn much. Like each movie would cost like $45.
Yeah.
And you'd get like 2 or 3, and you'd be wiped out for the week just so you could see a breast.
Yes.
Just so you could, and it's like, that's sad. Go out there, meet women, have an actual relationship, people, please. Please.
Or if you can, find a freak like yourself, and the two of you could just sit there.
Oh, see, that's great. Yeah, live your own porn movie. Yes, exactly.
All right.
We extended the pleasure.
Oh, my God. That's enough of that. No more double entendres. I guess next time we will be talking about Showtime, and I guess we'll also be talking about Showtime After Dark, right?
Yeah, After Hours.
After Hours, Showtime.
And remember, hopefully we can get into a conversation about Karen Kay and my love of her. And
oh, yes. I will try to find pictures.
Oh, he's dead.
But for now, I am the Russian bot, David Lawler. I was joined by the NPC, David Anderson. And next time we will be discussing Showtime. So say goodnight, Dave.
Good night, David.